Something just happened involving Caitlin Clark, and it has the entire basketball world talking. After a huge return moment connected to Team USA, expectations were already sky high. But what happened next? Nobody saw it coming. A respected WNBA legend, someone who had previously questioned Clark, was suddenly forced to rethink everything. Live on TV. Fans are calling it a statement. Analysts are calling it a turning point. Because this wasn't just a performance. It was proof. Proof that the narrative around Caitlin Clark might be changing in real time. So what exactly happened? What did the legend say before and after? And why is this moment being called a complete reversal? Let's break it all down. Before this moment, the conversation around Caitlin Clark had already been intense. Every game, every performance, every headline, it all carried weight. Because when a player enters the league with this level of attention, nothing stays small. And that includes criticism. There were voices, including respected figures, who questioned whether Clark's impact would truly translate at the highest level. Not because she lacked talent, but because the WNBA is different, more physical, more experienced, more demanding. And that's where the doubt came from. Could she handle it? Could she maintain her style under pressure? Could she prove that the hype wasn't just hype, but reality? These weren't random questions. They were coming from people who understand the game deeply, including a WNBA legend, someone who had built their reputation through years of elite performance, someone whose opinion carries weight. And when that kind of voice expresses doubt, people listen, because it's not just opinion, it's experience speaking. At the time, those comments didn't feel shocking. In fact, they felt expected. Because every rising star goes through this phase, a phase where they're tested not just on the court, but in conversation, where their abilities are questioned, where their potential is debated, and where they have to prove themselves, not through words, but through performance. That's exactly where Clark was. But then came the turning point. Her return moment tied to Team USA brought a new level of attention. Not just league attention, global attention. Because representing Team USA carries a different kind of weight. It's not just about individual performance anymore, it's about representing something bigger. And that's where players either rise or struggle. And going into that moment, expectations were high, very high. Fans were watching closely. Analysts were ready to break down every detail, and critics were waiting to see if their doubts would be confirmed or challenged. Then the game began, and almost immediately, something felt different. The energy, the pace, the confidence in Clark's movements. It wasn't just about making plays, it was about control. Control of the tempo, control of the moment, control of the narrative. Every possession felt intentional. Every decision looked sharp. And as the game continued, the impact became undeniable, not just through scoring, but through presence. The way she created space, the way she read defenses, the way she made teammates better. It wasn't just a good performance. It was a statement performance. The kind that forces people to pause, to rethink what they've been saying, to reconsider what they believed before. And that's exactly what started happening. Because as the performance unfolded, the conversation began to shift. From doubt to realization. But the real moment, it didn't happen on the court, it happened after. On live TV. When that same WNBA legend, the one who had previously questioned Clark, was asked to react. And that's where everything changed. Because now, it wasn't about speculation anymore, it was about evidence. Real performance, real impact, real results. And reacting to that in real time is a different kind of challenge. Because you can't rely on old opinions anymore. You can't fall back on previous doubts. You have to respond to what's right in front of you. And what was in front of them was undeniable, which led to one of the most talked about moments of the entire situation. A moment where words had to be reconsidered, where opinions had to be adjusted, and where the narrative around Caitlin Clark took a major step forward. The moment the cameras went live, you could feel it, that shift in energy. Because now, it wasn't about highlights anymore, it was about reaction, real-time reaction. And sitting there, being asked to respond, was a respected WNBA legend. Someone who had previously expressed doubt about Caitlin Clark. The kind of voice that doesn't speak lightly. The kind of voice that fans trust. And now, That voice had to respond to what everyone had just seen. No edits, no delay, no time to rethink, just raw, immediate analysis. At first, the reaction was measured, careful, acknowledging the performance, but still holding on to some of that earlier skepticism. Because changing an opinion instantly, especially one built on years of experience, isn't easy. But as the discussion continued, something started to happen. The tone shifted. Slowly at first, then more clearly, because the evidence was too strong to ignore. The performance wasn't just good. It wasn't just impressive. It was undeniable. And that's when the moment truly hit. Because you could see it, not just hear it. The realization that what Caitlin Clark had just done wasn't something that could be dismissed anymore. The conversation moved from maybe to this is real. And that's where the phrase started spreading. She made them eat their words. Not in a disrespectful way, but in a powerful one. Because in sports, nothing changes opinions faster than performance. Not arguments, not debates, not social media, just results. And Clark had just delivered results at the highest level. Meanwhile, fans watching this unfold reacted instantly. Clips of the live reactions started circulating everywhere, people pointing out the shift in tone, highlighting the exact moment where doubt turned into acknowledgement. And that's what made this moment viral. Because it wasn't just about what Clark did, it was about how others had to respond to it. And that combination, performance plus reaction, that's what creates unforgettable moments. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because while the legend's reaction was honest, it wasn't defensive. It wasn't about trying to protect previous opinions, it was about adapting, and about recognizing what had just happened and adjusting accordingly. And that matters, because in sports, credibility isn't about always being right. It's about being willing to evolve, to see something new, and acknowledge it. And that's exactly what happened here. The reaction didn't just validate Clark, it elevated the conversation. Because now, instead of debating whether she belongs, the focus shifted to something else entirely. How far can she go? Because once doubt turns into belief, the ceiling changes, the expectations rise, and the narrative evolves. Meanwhile, this moment also sent a message to the rest of the league, because players are always watching, always observing how others are being talked about. And when someone delivers a performance that forces even the toughest critics to adjust, that gets noticed. It builds respect. It changes how matchups are approached, because now, Caitlin Clark isn't just a player with hype, she's a player who has proven she can deliver under pressure, and that's a different level entirely. But with that respect comes something else. More attention, more focus, more effort from opponents to challenge her. Because in competitive environments like the WNBA, success doesn't make things easier, it makes them harder. Because once you prove yourself, everyone wants to test you, to see if you can do it again, to see if it was just one moment or something sustainable. And that's where the next phase begins. Because now, it's not about proving doubters wrong once. It's about proving it consistently, game after game, moment after moment. Meanwhile, fans are fully locked in not just celebrating the performance, but tracking what happens next. Because moments like this don't exist in isolation. They create momentum. They build anticipation. They turn future games into must-watch events. And that's exactly what's happening now. The narrative has shifted. The doubt has been challenged. The conversation has evolved. But the story, it's still unfolding, because one performance can change perception, but multiple performances, that's what builds legacy. After that live TV moment, everything changed. Not just for Caitlin Clark, but for the entire conversation around her. Because once a respected voice adjusts their stance in real time, it sends a signal that something real just happened. Something that can't be ignored, and that signal spread fast. Across social media, across sports shows, and across fan discussions everywhere, because now people weren't just talking about Clark's performance. They were talking about what it meant, and that meaning went deeper than stats, deeper than highlights. It was about validation that she could step into a high-pressure moment, connected to Team USA, and deliver at a level that forces even experienced analysts to rethink their opinions. And that kind of validation, it changes everything. Because before this, the conversation was split: supporters versus skeptics, believers versus doubters. But now, that gap started closing, not completely, because in sports, debate never fully disappears, but enough to shift the balance. Because once doubt starts turning into acknowledgement, the narrative evolves. And that's exactly what happened here. Meanwhile, what the WNBA itself felt the impact, because moments like this don't just affect one player, they affect the entire league. More attention, more engagement, more people tuning in to see what happens next. Because now, it's not just about watching Clark, it's about watching the response. How teams defend her, how players match her intensity, how the competition adjusts to this new level of expectation. And that's what turns a player into a central figure in the sport. Not just performance, but influence. The ability to change how the game is experienced. And Clark is starting to reach that level. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because with validation comes pressure. A different kind of pressure than before. Before it was about proving herself. Now it's about maintaining that standard. And because once you show what you're capable of, people expect to see it again, and again, and again. That's the challenge of greatness, consistency. Not just flashes of brilliance, but sustained excellence. And that's where this story moves next. Because now every game becomes part of the test. Was that performance a peak moment? Or the beginning of something bigger? Meanwhile, other players are paying attention. Because in a league full of elite talent, nobody wants to be overshadowed. Nobody wants to be left out of the conversation. So what happens? They respond. With intensity, with effort, with performances of their own. Because competition at this level isn't passive, it's reactive. And when one player raises the bar, others follow. That's how the game evolves. And that's how the level of play increases across the board. And that's exactly what this moment is triggering. But here's the key detail. Because while Clark is at the center of this shift, she's not controlling it alone. The league is responding collectively. Players stepping up, teams adjusting strategies, coaches refining game plans. Because now, there's a new variable in every matchup. Caitlin Clark, not just as a player, but as a presence. A presence that has to be accounted for, respected, planned for, and that changes the dynamic of the game. But here's where it all connects back to that live TV moment, because that wasn't just a reaction, it was a turning point. A moment where perception caught up with reality, where doubt met evidence, and had to adjust. And those moments, they don't happen often. But when they do, they define narratives, they shape careers. They create memories that fans come back to again and again. And this is one of those moments. But even with all of that, there's still something bigger at play, because this isn't just about one performance. It's about what that performance leads to. The ripple effect, the chain reaction, the way one moment influences everything that comes after it. And right now, that effect is just beginning. At this point, the moment has already made its mark. The performance, the reaction, the shift in narrative. But what really matters now is what happens after. Because moments like this don't exist in isolation. They create momentum. And momentum, if handled correctly, can turn into something much bigger. For Caitlin Clark, that momentum is now undeniable. She's no longer just part of the conversation. She's leading it. And that changes everything. Because when a player moves from being discussed to being the standard everyone is measured against, the entire dynamic of the WNBA shifts. Now, every game she plays carries extra weight. Not just for her, but for everyone involved. Opponents, teammates, fans. Because everyone is watching to see how this story continues. Will she maintain that level? Will she build on it? Will she turn this moment into something consistent? These questions are now at the center of everything. And that's where pressure starts to evolve. Because before, the pressure was about proving doubters wrong. Now, it's about living up to belief. And those are two very different challenges. Proving people wrong is motivating. Living up to expectations? That's demanding. Because expectations don't just sit quietly, they grow. With every performance, with every highlight, with every headline. And that growth creates a new level of responsibility. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because while Clark is dealing with rising expectations, the rest of the league is adapting in real time. Teams are watching film more closely, defensive strategies are becoming more targeted, Game plans are being built specifically to slow her down, because once a player reaches this level of attention, they become the focus. And that focus changes how every opponent approaches the game. More pressure on the ball, more physical defense, more strategic adjustments, because now it's not just about playing the game, it's about controlling the narrative within it. And that's where elite competition truly begins. But here's the key point, because while opponents are adjusting, Clark is also evolving. She's learning, adapting to different defensive looks, adjusting her decision-making under pressure, finding new ways to impact the game beyond scoring. And that's what separates great players from good ones, the ability to grow in real time, to respond to challenges instead of being limited by them. And that's exactly what this moment is demanding. Meanwhile, fans are more engaged than ever, not just watching games, but tracking progress, every stat, every performance, every adjustment. Because now there's a storyline they're invested in, a journey they're following, and that level of engagement is powerful. Because it keeps the conversation alive, it keeps the momentum building, it turns every game into something more than just a result. And it becomes part of a larger narrative. But here's where things connect back to that original moment again. Because that live TV reaction didn't just validate Clark, it set a new baseline, a new starting point for how she's viewed. And once that baseline is established, everything moving forward is measured against it. Not just by fans, but by analysts, players, and the league itself. And that's why this moment matters so much. Because it didn't just change one opinion, it changed the standard. But here's the challenge that comes with that. Because standards don't stay static. They rise. And that means Clark has to keep rising with them, continuously, consistently. Because once you reach a certain level, standing still isn't enough. And that's where the real test begins. Not just proving yourself once, but proving it over time. Against different teams, in different situations, under different kinds of pressure. And that's what defines careers. But even with all of that, there's still one final piece to this story, because beyond the performance, beyond the reaction, beyond the evolving narrative, there's something bigger at stake, the future, and how moments like this shape what comes next. At this point, everything is building towards something bigger than just one performance, bigger than one reaction, bigger than one moment on live TV. Because now, the question isn't what happened, it's what it means moving forward. For Caitlin Clark, for the WNBA, and for the entire direction of the game. Because moments like this don't just create headlines, they create expectations. And expectations change everything. Now, on every time Clark steps on the court, she's not just playing a game, she's responding to a narrative that has shifted from doubt to belief. And belief is powerful, because once people start believing in what you can do, they expect to see it again, and again, and again. That's the challenge of being at the center of attention. Consistency becomes the goal, not just flashes of greatness, but sustained excellence. Meanwhile, the rest of the league is reacting in real time, because players aren't ignoring this moment. They're studying it, watching how Clark plays, analyzing how she creates opportunities, preparing for how to defend her in future matchups. Because in a league as competitive as the WNBA, no advantage goes unchallenged, and no player stays untested. That means the next phase of this story won't be easier. And it will be harder. More physical defense, more strategic adjustments, more focus from opponents who want to prove themselves against her. And that's what makes this moment so important. Because it marks the transition from being talked about to being targeted, from being questioned to being challenged. And that's the stage where true stars are defined. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because while Clark is dealing with increased pressure, she's also influencing the game around her. Her style of play is shaping how teams approach offense. More spacing, more perimeter shooting, more emphasis on pace and creativity. Because when a player brings something new to the game, others adapt, they evolve. They incorporate elements that match that style, and that's how the sport grows. Through influence, through innovation, through players pushing each other to new levels. And Clark is now part of that process. But influence comes with responsibility, because once you impact the game at that level, you become a reference point, a standard that others measure themselves against, and that's where the pressure increases again. Because now, it's not just about individual success. It's about maintaining that influence over time. Meanwhile, fans are more engaged than ever, not just watching, but following every detail. Every game becomes part of a larger story. Every performance adds to the narrative. Every moment builds anticipation for what comes next. And that level of engagement is exactly what drives the sport forward. Because when fans care, the game grows. But here's the key challenge moving forward: sustainability. Because attention can rise quickly, but maintaining it requires consistency. From players, from teams, from the league as a whole. And that's where strategy becomes important. Because this moment can either be a peak or the beginning of something bigger, and the difference depends on what happens next. How players respond, how the league builds on the momentum, how the narrative continues to evolve. Because right now, everything is aligned. Attention, talent, opportunity, all in the same place. And that creates potential, the kind of potential that can transform a sport. But only if it's managed correctly, only if the momentum is sustained, only if the performances continue to match the expectations. And that's the stage we're entering now, the stage where everything matters more, where every game contributes to something bigger, where every moment adds to the future of the game. But even with all of that, there's still one final piece left. Because beyond the performance, beyond the pressure, beyond the narrative, there's one question that defines everything. What does this moment become? At the end of everything, after the performance, after the live TV reaction, after the shift in narrative, we're left with something much bigger than a single moment. We're left with a turning point. Because what Caitlin Clark just did wasn't just about proving one critic wrong, it was about redefining the conversation around her, and more importantly, redefining what this moment means for the WNBA. Because for weeks, the discussion had been centered around questions. Can she handle the pressure? Can she perform at this level consistently? Can she live up to the hype? And in one powerful stretch, tied to that Team USA return and followed by that unforgettable live TV moment, those questions started turning into answers. Real answers. Not based on opinion, but based on performance. And in sports, that's the only thing that truly matters. But here's where the story becomes even more important. Because moments like this don't just change opinions, they change expectations. And expectations are what define the next phase. Now, Caitlin Clark isn't just being watched as a promising player. She's being viewed as a standard, a player who has already proven she can deliver under pressure. And once that label is applied, everything changes. Because now, every performance is measured against that moment. Every game becomes a test, not just of skill, but of consistency. And that's the hardest part of all. Because proving something once is difficult, but proving it over time, that's what builds legacy. Meanwhile, the rest of the league is responding, because no player operates in isolation. Every performance creates a reaction. And right now, that reaction is happening across the board. Players stepping up, teams adjusting strategies, matchups becoming more intense. Because when one player raises the level, everyone else follows. That's how competition evolves. That's how leagues grow. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. But here's the key detail. Because while Clark is at the center of this moment, she's not the only one shaping it. The league itself is evolving alongside her. More attention, more engagement, more global visibility. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. Because it's not just about one player succeeding, it's about the entire game reaching a new level. A level where moments like this don't just happen, they matter. They influence how the sport is viewed, how it's covered, how it's experienced by fans around the world. And that's what makes this a turning point. But here's the most important part of all. Because even with everything that's happened, this story isn't finished. Not even close. Because the real test is still ahead. Can she maintain this level? Can she continue delivering under pressure? Can she turn this moment into something that defines her career long-term? These are the questions that will shape what comes next. And the answers, they won't come from interviews. They won't come from headlines. They'll come from the court, from the games, from the performances that either reinforce the narrative or challenge it. And that's what makes this moment so exciting. Because right now, everything is still in motion. The momentum is building. The attention is growing. The expectations are rising. And Caitlin Clark is right at the center of it all. But here's the final takeaway, because beyond the performance, beyond the reaction, beyond the debate, there is one undeniable truth. The game is changing. Faster than ever before. More people are watching. More people are engaged. More people are invested in what happens next. And moments like this are the reason why. Because they bring everything together. Performance, narrative, emotion, competition, all in one place. And when that happens, you don't just get a highlight, you get history. Why so yes, a WNBA legend had to rethink their words. Yes, Caitlin Clark delivered a performance that changed the conversation. Yes, the narrative has shifted, but the bigger picture is that this moment isn't the end of anything, it's the beginning of a new phase, a new level of competition, a new level of attention, and a new chapter in the evolution of women's basketball. And if this moment is any indication, that chapter is going to be unforgettable. So what do you think about this moment? Did Caitlin Clark just prove all the doubters wrong? Or is there still more she needs to show to truly dominate the league? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because this conversation is only getting bigger. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the biggest stories in basketball. We're covering everything, from breakout performances to legendary reactions and game-changing moments. Share this video with your friends and let's see who really understands what's happening beyond the highlights. Because in today's game, it's not just about what happens on the court, it's about how it changes everything. Hashtag Caitlin Clark, hashtag WNBA, hashtag basketball news, hashtag sports debate, hashtag WNB, A News, hashtag women in sports, hashtag basketball talk, hashtag viral, sports, hashtag game changer, hashtag sports update at WNBA, at Team USA, at ESPN, at Bleacher Report, at Sports Center.